We had the idea of shooting a series of stories about Kazakhstan's waterfalls, but it turned out that there are so many of them in our country that a whole life would not be enough to capture all of them. Thus, we decided to limit ourselves to the largest and most breathtaking waterfalls of Kazakhstan. The first lines of this list are occupied by the highest falls of our homeland, the Burkhan-Bulak, and the largest waterfall of the Altai, the Kokkol Falls in East Kazakhstan region. They are separated by 1,500 kilometers of roads along which we will enjoy a variety of landscapes. We'll get acquainted with some interesting people and dive into their everyday life, history, traditional economy and culture. No doubt, we will not pass by the rich and diverse animal world living in the mountains of eastern and southeastern Kazakhstan. Why do people like to travel so much? After all, while on the road, travelers face multiple hardships and inconveniences, and not everywhere there is a five-star hotel, right? Bumpy country roads, the stress of hiking, fatigue from hours and hours in the saddle, sometimes a real risk on steep slopes, and while crossing white water, encountering dangerous predators and other wild animals. So why do people voluntarily take these risks and endure difficulties and even enjoy it? Stay tuned as we will try to answer these and some other questions. Hey guys, today we started from Almaty, the city of my love. Our today's main character is traveler Pavel Shitik. An incorrigible romantic by nature, for many years he was engaged in by far the least romantic business. He was selling plumbing equipment and spent his holidays in the most protected corners of the world. As a result, the tourist attractions of Kazakhstan caught his soul so much that Pavel once decided to drastically change his life. He got permanent residence in Kazakhstan and opened a travel agency here. It's worth noting that 90% of Kazakhstani travel agencies send Kazakh tourists to different exotic countries. Pavel, on the contrary, decided to focus on domestic adventure tourism. Go to the wild, clear your brain and rest your body. Breathe fresh air and we'll see what awaits us. The Burkhan-Bulak waterfalls is the expedition visa point.
Водопаду Буркhan-Bulak можно попасть двумя путями.
There are two ways of getting to the Burkhan-Bulak. Via Kapal is the most common one that they use, and through Karatal rural district. This is the road that we took. In fact, there's the third one also, along the Kora River itself. Now the road is bad, but we hope it will be open next year again. The shortest time to get from Almaty to the Burkhan-Bulak is about 8 to 9 hours, but Pavel Shitik and his team don't like cutting corners. How about crossing the Yazewoya Falls from its southern macro slope to the northern one? Only 2 extra days, but we will see the mysterious Beljailao Valley and the site of the Bulak battle. The southern foothills of the Yazewoya Falls are desert beds composed of picturesque clays and limes. For millions of years, water and countless generations of living organisms had diligently worked on the bottom of the ancient ocean, creating this beauty. Then something went wrong and the seabed surged, bringing it all up to the surface. In the times of geological faults, it was not the most attractive place to travel. Yet now it seems to us that Mother Nature came up with all of this to please our eyes. Why not? We are also a part of nature and are entitled to its gifts and beauties, right? Provided we don't forget that today there are so many of us and we have achieved such technical capacity that we can easily turn all this beauty into a giant waste dump. Taking care of children and grandchildren is one of the basic instincts of all living creatures on planet Earth, so we must consider leaving our world to descendants in a habitable form. Another thing to keep in mind that we are only guests on this planet, and time will inevitably destroy all humankind's tangible assets. In 200–300 years, rust will eat up iron. In 500 years, plastic will completely decompose. In several thousand years, the hot desert winds and sand will crush concrete, not to mention the electronic media which can disappear in a split second. Nature, on the contrary, will exist no matter what. In the south of Kazakhstan, hot mineral springs are not uncommon, yet caution is necessary while swimming in them. Preferably, it should be based on medical prescription, as radon alpha radiation can have both positive and negative impact on human body. We are heading towards the town of Jarkent, but near Kokkol village, we sharply turn left and start following the Burkhan-Bulak River.
Stay safe. Thank you very much. I asked him if there was a good road. He said no. I said that we still needed to go. He said we'll manage.
From the top of the Kayinditau ridge, you can get an excellent view of the Beljaila Valley. The Toksanbai ridge is sparkling with its snowy caps opposite of us. The Burkhan-Bulak Falls is just across the ridge, but getting there by car is impossible. It seems like we should be keeping right, shouldn't we? Finally, we are in the Bell Valley, and it seems that it was specially created for agro-tourism. A great place for shooting a historical movie too. Only satellite television antennas and sporadic vehicles hint that we're actually in the 21st century.
Мы находимся на Бель-Джайляу. Это большая межгорная.
We are in Beljailau now, a large intermountain valley. In the middle of it, there is a huge stone pillar called Balbal. Archaeologists have found dozens of them across the vast expanses of the Great Eurasian Plain from the Danube to Western Mongolia. This Balbal apparently belongs to the early Turkic era, that is, 7th–9th centuries AD. Along the road, there are multiple colonies of eversmans, susliks or Arctic ground squirrels as they're also called. Edward Eversman, a famous zoologist, ethnographer and traveler, described these funny animals in the early 19th century. In the past, they were of commercial significance, as they used their fur to make coats and hats. Susliks continue to play an important role in modern biogeosynosis. They loosen the soil, contribute to meadow formation and serve food for many rare birds of prey. In the Middle Ages, these lush pastures were as popular among pastoralists as today. Legend has it that after the famous Bulak battle, the wounded soldiers of Jahangir Khan restored their health in Kumis cure institutions in the Jailau of the Bell Valley. Not all of them survived, and those deceased were buried in these hills. Scientists have not yet come to a consensus as to the actual location of this battle that took place in 1643. That was the first time when the Jungar army was defeated. Yet the majority of researchers agree that it took place here in the narrow gorge of the Bulak River, hence its name. Pavel Shitik, Dauren Raptayev and Aybek Bashirov want to inspect the battle site with a metal detector. For about one day, Jahangir Khan's advanced detachment of only 600 soldiers stood against the 15,000 army of the Junga Kuntaiji Edeni Batur. Jahangir Khan's warriors represented a kind of elite special forces of that time. They were chosen from the best among the best, were armed with advanced firearms and skillfully used ambush tactics. A day later, Samarkand Emir Yalangtush Bahadur arrived with his 20,000 army to help Jahangir Khan, and they successfully defeated the Jungas. Although the war against the Jungas did not end then, their initial plan of blitzkrieging the Kazakh Khanate was shattered. After the battle, Jahangir Khan's gravitas in the great steppe grew, and he remained a national hero in the popular memory forever. What were you looking for with your shovels today? We were searching for evidence of the ancient battle. We are now in the Jungar Mountains, and this is where the Bulak battle took place. We decided to seize the opportunity and did a walk around, hoping to come across some ancient artifacts. Nothing so far. Although the guys didn't find anything tangible, they experienced a lot of positive emotions, enjoyed the most gorgeous landscapes, and touched the heroic history of our native land. It takes about 10 hours to get from the southern to the northern macro slope of the Jatisu Alatau. The Kora River frees itself from the mountain narrow out into the plain close to the town of Tekeli. Near the Kora's exit to the Foothill Valley, there's a stone Buddha statue. The Buddha's stupa represents the mind of the Buddha. A nice rock image of a mythical animal resembling a lion standing on its hind legs can be clearly seen as well. As we had expected, it was not possible to drive all the way to the waterfall along the Kora River. It was late and the expedition stopped for the night. It takes 15-20 minutes to set up the camp. Preparing a full-fledged dinner in the field is a kind of art. We could try fishing in the morning also, as there is a lot of osman in the Kora River. Yet we decide to do something even more exciting and feel a little bit like stalkers. Guys, we don't have much time, so let's move quickly. If anyone smells a sharp and unpleasant smell or hears whatever sounds, we abort the mission immediately, okay? Archaeologists date the first ore mines in the alluvial cone of the Kora River from the early Iron Age. In the early 1st millennium BC, primitive metallurgy had already existed here. In 1933, the Jungar Geological Exploration Expedition, led by Mirgalim Kadylbekov and Mikhail Yudichev, discovered the Tekeli polymetallic deposit. These are the abandoned lead-zinc mines. Some stalkers come here hoping to find precious metals or something else. Sometimes it takes its toll. Do you see the 3 graves down below? We'll walk for 100-200 meters and return. The first tents of the construction workers who built the Tekeli mining and smelting plant appeared along the Tekeli and Kora rivers in 1939. A few years later, the factory was already operating to its full capacity, and the small village of Tekeli quickly turned into an industrial center. As it often happened back then, the deposit's discoverers, geologists Kadylbekov and Yudichev, were falsely accused and executed. Only 20 years later, they were rehabilitated posthumously. It's so quiet here that terrible thoughts obscure consciousness, and the mind tells you to run away from here as quickly as you can. During World War II, women and teenagers worked here in 3 shifts on an equal footing with men. The job was quite hazardous. The ore had a lot of sulfur and carbon shale, and that resulted in frequent fires. Spontaneous ore ignition took place in several mines, and they had to close them with concrete plugs. Have you read The Stalker by the Strugatsky brothers? Of course. What did they collect in the book? They collected the swag. Lead and zinc production is associated with the presence of a small amount of accompanying gold, so the abandoned tunnel shafts attract a lot of adventure seekers. Their popular name is stalkers. It's worth saying that stalking is dangerous and illegal. Having inspected the tunnels, we are hurrying back out. The fertile foothills of the Jungar Alatau are almost completely used for agriculture. Barley fields are on both sides of us, and we have even seen Sivers apple or Malus sivesi trees. We plan to have our next stop at an apiary. In the Yazewoya Alatau foothills, beekeeping is a traditional trade. For some time it was declining, but today it's on the rise again. The apiary we are going to is not quite ordinary, as its owners are trying to combine honey production with agricultural tourism. It looks like they're doing quite well. Tell me, is beekeeping a profitable business today? It is, but it's hard for beginners. Professionalism needs time. Indeed, a beekeeper's path is rough and complicated. Years and years of experience is the only way to success. We didn't plan to engage in tourism business, but our friends and just strangers often come here, so we are entertaining the thought of providing tourist services also. The landscapes themselves make you think about ecotourism. Our apiary is located in a geographically advantageous place. From here, it's not so far to the Burkhan-Bulak waterfall. The waterfall is located in the Cherkasai area. There are Yazewoya salamanders there, and the landscapes are astonishing. A nice walk and apiotherapy at the same time. Beekeeping is not so much a profession as a lifestyle. It's impossible to become a beekeeper by going to a school. They come to it gradually. My name is Jibek. I started doing beekeeping 5 years ago. It was a hobby, but it developed into a business. To increase business capitalization and attract additional investment, the guys invented a unique commercial strategy called bee sharing, which literally means honey sharing. A city person or a company buys several hives. Professional beekeepers do all the work of taking care of them, for which the hive's owners pay them a small salary. As a result, the investor gets honey at a below market price and, most importantly, of guaranteed high quality. It's hot season for bees now. Bird cherry, hawthorn and apple are blossoming. Only raspberry will come later. They move mobile apiaries following the blossoming monocrops. In Jungaria, apiaries are stationary because something is blossoming from spring to fall. Here in the Jungar Mountains, beekeeping has existed from time immemorial. I would say over 300 years or even more. The honey is great. They come for honey from northern Kazakhstan. Just recently, one guy came from Irkutsk. A leaf skeletonizer moth is working tirelessly as it also wants to get some sweet pollen. Early in the morning, the expedition continues its journey to the Burkhan-Bulak waterfall. Previously, almost all peoples deified natural objects. Although philosopher Joseph Ravson introduced the term pantheism only in the 17th century, the idea of a non-personified god present in the laws of nature was first formulated by Heraclitus and Anaximander. In ancient China, Lao Tzu was a classical pantheist. Later on, Benedict de Spinoza and even Leo Tolstoy supported this idea, very close to Tengriism of the early Turks. According to a legend, once Tengri gave Umay a ring. To allow all people to enjoy its beauty, she threw it down to the ground and it turned into the lake. It's starting to rain, yet about 2,000 meters above sea level there is still snow. Come on, tough guy, move it! Agro-tourism is not for quitters. Can't hear you well, Dakar. Could you repeat, please? It's not easy to overcome snowdrifts, but trained drivers are ready for such adventures. Only the driver matters. Everything else is secondary.
Все остальное не важно.
Five hours of off-road driving and the expedition finally climbs the pass. For perseverance, the nature has awarded us with some sun.
Друзья, мы поднялись на замечательную смотровую площадку.
Friends, we've just climbed to a wonderful observation deck, the Kora River. On the one end of the river, there is a glacier. The other one goes to the town of Tekeli. The road back is going to be rough also. What do you need these stones for, guys? For such an extreme descent, we need to keep the truck as evenly as possible. In a forest glade near the waterfall, we found a great place to camp and to relax. Potatoes, the joy of all tourists. The first tourist commandment is not to throw food waste where bears live. Bears are quite common in the upper reaches of the Kora River, so the risk of an unexpected encounter with this dangerous predator is always present. Yet, the fact that the Red Book listed Tian Shan bear subspecies inhabiting the Junga-Ralatau is less aggressive than its Siberian relatives might console tourists. Nonetheless, there were cases of bear attacking humans, so it's better to be cautious. Often bears attack due to abruptly bumping into humans. Every major predator has a personal space, violation of which it perceives as aggression. Thus, if you see bear tracks, be careful. In fact, it's better to notify the beast of your presence in advance with a loud shout, and not approach it if you actually see it. Only these who get up early get a chance to see wild animals. In daytime, animals prefer hiding in the woods. In the morning and at sunset, morale noble deer come out of forest to the banks of the Kora River. Here and there on top of rocks, you can also see mountain goats. Take care.
В общем, сейчас собираем наш небольшой лагерь.
So we will pack up our small camp and head to the Burkhan-Bulak waterfall.
Водопада Бурхан-Булак.
Burkhan-Bulak is the highest waterfall in Kazakhstan. The total height of 4 cascades is 168 meters. In Turkic languages, the word Burkhan has different meanings. In Buryatia, they call Burkhans the shamans capable of contacting spirits. In other traditions, the spirits themselves are considered the Burkhans. Some peoples use the same word for secular lords. Among the Hindus, Burkhans denote the souls of deceased ancestors. A beautiful legend is associated with this waterfall. A young man from a wealthy family named Burkhan loved the daughter of a poor man, the pretty Kora, but his evil father locked him on top of a mountain. Then, wishing to unite with his beloved, Burkhan turned with a plea to the nature goddess Umay. She took pity on the lovers and turned the young man into the waterfall and the girl into the river. We just saw the highest waterfall in Kazakhstan, and now we can't wait to see the most powerful of them. To do this, we will go to the Canton Karagay National Park. For the true travelers, 1500 kilometers is not so far. The National Park's office is located in the district center of Canton Karagay on the banks of the Burkhan-Bulak River. We arrived to Canton Karagay, paid the fee and got our permits. The Burkhan-Bulak River originates from Burkhan-Bulak Lake on the border with Russia. Downstream, 2 tributaries, Black and White Beryl rivers, flow into it. In the valley of the Beryl River, there finds itself one of the most significant early Iron Age historical monuments. More than 100 mounds of the Pazyryk culture are concentrated here. The most famous of them is the Golden Mound of Kings, where scientists have discovered hundreds of golden animal-style jewelry pieces.
Сейчас добрались в поселок Кора River.
We are now in the village of Kora River.
Контрольная точка.
We have literally the last checkpoint left where we need to register our passes, get clearance, and it will be only 18 kilometers to Yazewoya or Ride Lake in English.
15 километров.
On the way to Lake Yazewoya, you can stop by at the Yazewoya Falls, which can be considered the smaller brother of the Kokkol Falls. It's much smaller but roars like a dozen diesel engines. Lake Yazewoya is located 1,685 meters above sea level. It is surprisingly quiet and calm here. You can fish for Ide and grayling here. Whereas Ide inhabits the lake itself, grayling prefers small mountain rivers nearby. You can either rent inexpensive guest houses or set up a camp at the designated camping site to enjoy a leisurely conversation close to campfire. In the mornings, from here you can have a nice view of Mount Belukha. You can walk or horseback ride the 40 kilometers from Lake Yazewoya to the Kokkol Falls. Each rented horse will cost you 10,000 tenge a day, although with a share of luck you can find them even cheaper. We will join a group of tourists from Nur Sultan. In recent years, adventure domestic tourism has been attracting an increasing number of residents of Kazakh megacities. Tired of excess civilization, townspeople want not only to learn more about their domestic nature, but also experience the harsh romance of an extreme hike. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors had to spend a huge amount of energy on fighting for survival. Our body has adapted to this struggle both physically and psychologically. And only in the past 100 years, urban residents have fallen into a completely unusual situation for human body, when there is no need to struggle for existence and the classical natural selection had stopped. Now you don't have to pay for food and security with hard physical labor and taking risks. Thanks to evolution, the human body has worked out effective ways to fight hunger, but not overeating, physical pressure, but not sedentary lifestyle, stresses, but not existential crises. Adventure tourism activates our ancient instincts and boosts our immunity. We just saw a bear on the opposite side of the White Burrell River. It can't be seen from here, but the guys did notice it, right? Yes, over there. They call bear the master of the taiga, and every lord should have subjects. In the Burrell Valley, there live morals, roe deer, lynxes, marmots and other animals. A little higher, in the alpine belt with multiple rocky areas, there live mountain goats, tikka and even snow leopards. An eco tour gets much more attractive to potential customers if they have an opportunity of seeing wild animals. Although in order to see them, one has to get up really early in the morning and learn to patiently scan the surroundings with binoculars. Why does everyone have a brutal appetite, and why does even the simplest food taste so good while hiking? It's the most delicious spread that I had in my entire life. Friends, what do you think is the most important thing about going to the Belukha? First of all, it's of course the guy and the horse carrying your food. Second in line is the guy who has the guitar. Today it's Ainu. Show us your guitar. Here it is, safe and sound. The bridge over the Burrell River was built during the war. Ore was transported along it from the Kokkol tungsten mine. The bridge is not in its best shape, but the strong Altai larch still holds. The weather in the Altai can change unexpectedly. A second ago, the sun was shining and suddenly a cloud rounds in from behind the mountain and a shower begins. Although, it usually ends just as quickly. You can win the last climb to the waterfall only on foot. On the way, we saw a huge cedar, so the guys want to lean against it, source some energy and maybe ask for something. The roar of the Kokkol Falls can be heard from afar. Although with 80 meters it is slightly smaller than the Burkhan-Bulak, it definitely seems to have more power. A huge mass of water falls almost sheer and breaks down on the rocks, forming a huge cloud of water dust, ionizing air hundreds of meters around. Standing against the sun, you can see the rainbow. Approaching the cliff itself is dangerous. It is better to enjoy the buoyancy of the elements from a distance. There's an observation deck with a pavilion, but photographers prefer to choose an angle without artificial objects. Pure and raw nature. It feels so powerful. Not far from the waterfall, there are still several huts that once belonged to the tungsten mine's lower camp. The workers used to live here in between the shifts. Today they use them as tourist overnights. I can definitely tell you that this day was one of the hardest physically in my life. But one of the most beautiful also. Everything was so great. After sleeping in tents, even a dilapidated hut seems like a hotel. Good morning, guys. The Kokkol Falls is located 25 kilometers from the highest peak of Siberia, Mount Belukha. Not everyone is capable of climbing the Belukha, but visiting the foot of the Burel Glacier is definitely a must.
Белуха очень капризная гора. Она открывается.
Belukha is quite a capricious mountain. It opens rarely and not to everyone. It's a riddle mountain and has its own character. If you think about ascending it, you should possess courage, patience and power. The so-called Equilibrium Lake is located 2,400 meters above sea level. The water in it is much warmer than in many other glacial lakes. Many believe that on the shores of this lake people find mental balance. Having washed the sweat of the enduring hike up to the lake and lying near it on juicy grass, we found not only mental but also physical balance. There were also a couple of extreme lovers who decided to swim in glacial lakes nearby. Quite a different experience, but likewise strong. From the crest you can get a great view of Mount Belukha. From ancient time, the highest peak of Siberia was shrouded in mystery and secrets. Until now, many climbers believe in the sacred power of the mountain peak. Every year, followers of the famous artist, Orientalist and mystical philosopher Nikolai Roerich gather at the foot of the Katun Glacier. His painting, The Victory, symbolizes the victory of a human over his or her mental and physical weaknesses. The philosophy of this picture is close even to people far from mysticism. By overcoming difficulties, human becomes stronger, better and spiritually richer. Towering above all of the Altai for thousands of years, Mount Belukha served as a sacred symbol for all the Turks. It's known that the Turkic ethnos took shape on the slopes of the southern Altai. Now the Belukha is becoming a world adventure tourism attraction. Experts of the World Conservation Fund have included the transboundary Altai-Sayan eco-region in the list of 200 regions of the world most important for the conservation of nature on a planetary scale. It is a real pearl of the Northern Hemisphere, a land with untouched, pristine nature, the highest level of biological diversity and unique landscapes. In the Katon-Karagai National Park, the experts of the World Conservation Fund, jointly with the staff of the Forestry and Wildlife Committee of the Ministry of Ecology, Geology and Natural Resources of Kazakhstan, are researching the populations of snow leopard and other rare animals. According to conservationists, the development of ecotourism in specially protected areas is the most resource-efficient way of using natural wealth. People are nomads by nature. Since ancient times, our distant ancestors have moved in space in search of a better life and game-rich grasslands. This twisted travel craving has survived in the spirals of our DNA to this day. The task of ecotourism operators is to turn the aesthetic need of millions of people of communicating with wild nature into a highly monetized business which will help residents of remote areas to earn their living without damaging the environment. We saw 2 waterfalls. It was the formal purpose of our journey. In fact, we saw much more than just beautiful landscapes. We are leaving the Altai behind because Central Asia has many other exciting locations to go to and share with you, our dear friends.